Yes, okay. So, Jack, all yours, please. If you'd be so kind as to introduce yourself, tell us what you're going to tell us, and then tell us. It's all yours.
Yeah, I was thinking it could be nice as there's a small group. Okay, cool. We've got Alison joining us as well.
Yeah.
Um, um, Hello, Alison. Welcome. So there is six of us. Cool. Um, so yeah, as there's kind of not too many of us, I thought I would um we'll make it a bit more sort of interactive, and let's get more of a sort of um yeah, I can try and make it a little bit less sort of just me talking, and hopefully get a bit more interactive. um but yeah, so my name is Jack Cooper. Thank you for coming, everybody. I did a great collaboration um talk about 9 months ago, I believe. And so I don't think, other than Graham, anyone was here for that. Were any of you guys here for that? I don't think so. Have any of you guys heard of Postcode Revolution before? Linda has, Alison, Stewart, Gary has, and then Stuart and Alison haven't. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to share my screen. So here we cool. So there we are.
Nearly.
So here we go.
Bingo.
Go. So
Yep.
this is Postcode Revolution, and in this session, I'm going to talk about the Postcode Revolution story so far, transformative adaptation workshops that I did, and nature-based transformation. So I've actually got a little video that has been made since the last talk I did, which I am going to play for you guys, which just gives a good description of Postcode Revolution. So
The
here
sound on the video.
there is sound. Will that work,
It
Graham?
will if you selected the right box on Zoom. When you go into the share button on Zoom, you have to click, I think it's the bottom left corner. There's something about sharing sound. So it might be worth your going back just to check that, Jack.
Yes, I've got that on.
Okay, fine. Go for it then.
Here we go.
So, hi Jack.
Can you hear that?
Yep.
Awesome. Here you go. Enjoy.
Thanks for having the interview with me. Could you just introduce yourself?
Hi Ari, happy to be here. My name is Jack Cooper. I am a third year liberal arts BA student at the University of Sussex and the founder and director of Postcode Revolution.
Could you tell us a little bit about what the Postcode Revolution is and what its objectives are?
So the Postcode Revolution has three elements: ideas, outreach, and action. Postcode Revolution aims to create a shift in all of these areas. So in terms of ideas, it's looking at our culture, wider paradigmatic way of thinking, and attempting to shift that to something more ecological. Outreach is in the form primarily of a podcast, which is coming out soon, which spotlights people, ideas, and projects which are happening. And then in terms of action, that's about inspiring and informing people on how to build community where they are. In a nutshell, that is Postcode Revolution. For someone looking to start Postcode Revolution where they are, I recommend firstly fact-finding. This is an essential first step, as a local community may already exist where you live. If it doesn't, I recommend creating an online community space. Thirdly, prepare a flyer. There's a template available on the Postcode Toolkit. Fourthly, knock on doors, sharing your flyer and intentions with your neighbours. 5, host a community connection event. That's it. There you go.
What are some examples of practical things that you've done, practical events, practical workshops, and what have the benefits of some of these been?
Okay, yeah. So in my first postcode in Burgess Hill, we had 3 or 4 community meetups. We had a postcode book club. We had put on rather ambitiously a little postcode music festival at the end of the summer, which didn't wasn't spectacular, but it's an example of kind of projects. And I set up a community library in the postcode. So there's been some sharing of tools and books and food. In terms of energy, I organised 5 energy performance certificates for the houses in a kind of form of collective bargaining, which is a small thing, but I think there's much more scope to do bigger things, whether that be clubbing together on insulation, carpooling, clubbing together on solar batteries, solar panels. In terms of kind of climate and risk, then looking at how to create community climate adaptation plans, looking at how the community can be prepared in the eventuality of floods, of heat waves. Resilience is an important part of Postcode Revolution, and in some ways it came out of a sense that by building community where you are, you can also then thus build resilience. Postcode Revolution is also very much about trying to amplify what people are already doing rather than rebrand it and take credit for it, which is what I think a lot of organisations have a bad habit of doing. What Postcode Revolution is, in many ways, is these 2 wings of transformation and adaptation. It's about adapting to the climate and ecological risks and shocks which are already baked in. And then transformation is about looking at community, nature, energy, how we can transform our ways of living to be more low energy, have more contact with nature and bring more biodiversity in, and also have more connection.
So there you are. That is going to pause the sharing for a minute. Hello, Bonnie. Nice to see you. So, of the people here, I wanted to ask, how many people here know? I'd say more than 2 houses. The residents of more than 2 houses in their street or postcode. Yeah, cool. So I'm talking to people who are already doing this sort of stuff, which is great. So for me, growing up, I only knew my direct neighbours. We didn't have a sense of community in the street where I grew up, and Postcode Revolution came out of a desire to change that, to build community where I was, and to act on climate and nature. Because I'm going to share my screen again. I used to be what could be described as a radical climate activist. That is me, with a beard and slightly longer hair, and I ran on the football pitch at the Women's Euros quarter final back in 2022, and that received a 3-year stadium ban, which is just coming to an end. I've been having to have my passport into the police station every time England play away for the past 3 years, and that came out of specifically that action came out of the 2022 heat wave, and before then I was yeah, doing things like sitting in roads, running up on stages, and more radical things. But this kind of came out of that time as an attempt, a theory of change, which was around disruption, acting in these public spaces. And I highlighted one of the quotes I received from the Daily Mail. Received a lot of hate for that, as one may imagine. Which said, Mikez from London said, "You are negatively root branding environmentalism into some woke leftist radical movement, creating a disconnect between the issues and the general public. Find a more constructive way, please." And Postcode Revolution partly came as a response to that, in a sense of attempting to act locally at a community level and bring people together across political divides, acting on community and climate. So this is a quote from one of the members of the postcode, who said that it gave her a different vision for the feasibility of staying in the property that she loved. It's also great when walking on the street. I now say hello to people. This is a photo as well from the first postcode meetup, community connection gathering. We invited people to bring food, and got people to write down their house number on there, on stickers, and basically just connect. And it was beautiful. People of all sorts of different ages, had over 10 houses come and connect, and that really kicked the community off. And it's now been 2 years on. We're having another similar meetup on the 5th of July, and that community continues on. So since then, this is a picture of the community that I set up in Brighton, where I'm currently living. And that was the first meetup we had. And the Postcode Revolution project, I have split into 3 key areas. So there's the ideas, outreach, and the action. So in terms of ideas, in that video, the Postcode Revolution podcast was mentioned. Since then, we've released 6 episodes so far, and that's interviewing people engaged in similar work, and exploring the ideas involved in community building, climate action, adaptation, mutual aid. So that's in the ideas space. In terms of outreach, there's a Postcode Revolution WhatsApp community consisting of 64 members so far, and anyone here is also welcome to join that. That's a space for people around the country and abroad. We've got some members in Switzerland and Spain who can connect and share ideas, information on building community where they are, and just ideas and events in the wider climate space. In terms of action, there are now 6 postcode communities in existence across Burgess Hill, Brighton, Worthing, and Bristol. And these postcode communities at their core have this idea around connecting with your neighbours and creating that community hub, with climate and nature action and energy action springing from that. Furthermore, in terms of ideas, what I'm going to be talking about in a little bit is the dissertation I've recently done on transformative adaptation. I'm a 3rd-year liberal arts student, and postcode workshops that I conducted as part of that dissertation, exploring these ideas in more academic detail. In terms of outreach, There's a Postcode Revolution website, social media platforms and content. And then in context further of action, I created a postcode toolkit, which is available via the website. And we've got a Postcode Revolution book club, which is coming soon. And what I would like to do is show you guys, this is the toolkit. So you can find this by the website. This is the Postcode Revolution toolkit. So when I say Postcode Revolution, I'm defining revolution as a circular movement or a fundamental change in the way of thinking about or visualizing something rather than straight up government overthrow. And what the toolkit has is an explainer, an introduction, thinking about the reasons why, and then it has 5 actions, which explained in the video: fact finding, create an online community space, thinking about the community rules. It's got a flyer in there, which is a template based on what I designed and tested out in Brighton. The 4th action, knocking on the doors, sharing your flyer intention with your neighbours. And the 5th, hosting a community connection event. And then there's a Q&A with me talking about what I did after that and the various different things you can do, the testimonials, what others are doing, various links and things here. So that is where I'm at currently. And I think rather than just keep talking and then have the discussion bit at the end, I just wanted to ask and see, are there any questions that people have now before I move on to the next part, just about what I've mentioned? Are there any questions that people would like to ask about that?
Jack, I'm interested whether you got resistance from people when you first started it, because like when I was a bit younger, I remember feeling like, oh my God, cringe, as if I'm going to talk to all the people in my street. And obviously now I sort of get the point. But I think when I was younger, I probably wouldn't have got the point in the same way. And I think probably I might receive some resistance if I tried to do this in my street. I know most people to look at, but I certainly don't know them all. And I suppose that's sort of the thing that makes me feel like, I'm not sure I'm going to do it, is just that a lot of people just might be going, no, that's just weird.
Yes. So I think that's an important point you raised there. I think part of what Postcode Revolution has been about is about trying to encourage people to overcome the anxieties of doing it, because it is definitely and can be an anxiety inducing prospect of talking to the neighbors who are strangers and are, you don't know. That can a legitimately scary thing. So that's one of the reasons why in the toolkit, thinking about the reasons why. So I'll just share my screen again. So in the toolkit, one of the things I have got is looking at the reasons why. So thinking about connecting with your neighbors. So do you know your neighbors? Thinking about the benefits of creating a community and realities of climate breakdown. So
Not sharing your screen, by the way. I don't know if you're.
oh, is it not sharing? Sorry,
Is that just for me, or can other people see it?
No. Well, no, you're quite right. He's not sharing it, but I am looking at his toolkit on the website.
Oh, here we go. Let me share again. Can we see that now?
Yes, that's working now.
Awesome. So sorry about that. So yeah, thinking about why. So thinking about the benefits of connecting with your neighbours, the reality of loneliness in the community, the benefits of creating that community, and the realities of climate and climate breakdown and safety. I think also, in addition to this, is one of the realities that I've faced and other people have done this is that, you know, not everyone is going to want to be involved in that community. And you know, that's okay. And that's one of the things with this is that recognizing that there's always going to be a core of people who are more engaged than others, and recognizing the different layers of engagement. So in the context of Burgess Hill, of that community, there's been a core of people sustained through a book club that we formed, Postcode Book Club, that really the core of that community and the ones hosting and doing the things in the community.
Are you reading themed books?
So that book club works basically of just each session there's a different theme. So that's not explicitly climate related. I believe they've had like some sort of some nature environment related sessions, but that's more just, yeah, basically a book club where people come in together, choose a different theme, and then bring books based on that theme, because that was the kind of one of the just an interest amongst people that formed was around reading, which brought the people together for that
Nice.
in that function. Yeah, as mentioned in the video, I organised an energy group, and we organised on energy performance certificates, so that using collective bargaining, we got an energy performance assessor to come over and do assessments for 5 of the houses for £40 instead of, it would have been like 60, £70. So that was a kind of easy win early on in terms of the energy domain. But at the core of Postcode Revolution is this sense of community, and one of the things I sort of stressed early on is, you know, you don't have to be active or interested in climate nature to be involved. So just having that boundary of the postcode and basically going, you know, you live here, if you want to join, you know, you're very welcome. And that's where, you know, what we've done is having, you know, in the context of that, setting up WhatsApp group and a Facebook group for the postcode. And then one of the things you can do is in WhatsApp, there's the community function where you can create separate groups for different things. So it's definitely a reality that, you know, not everyone is going to be interested in doing things necessarily related to climate and nature, but there are a lot of people who want that community. And in relation to resilience and climate breakdown and adaptation, one of the things with Postcode Revolution is yeah, by just having those connections, and you know, this referencing back to the fantastic session last week, the concept of No 21, which is very applicable and relevant here, because that's what Postcode Revolution is, why it relates to resilience and adaptation of having that those networks and links and community around you, means that in the case of disaster, in the case of emergency, you have those links and people around you who can help. Graham, would you like to?
Jack, on your slides, you showed that your WhatsApp group now has 64 members. I take it, are they all part of your local postcodes? Because I'm just thinking that I know of lots of WhatsApp groups that focus on local things, like a local village in Somerset or our own road here in the Isle of Wight, depending on the size of where you are. And I wonder whether there were not topics that are discussed in your WhatsApp group that would be of interest to the other WhatsApp groups. And do you accept other ways of linking entire groups to your WhatsApp group, or does it have to be individuals?
So the Postcode Revolution WhatsApp community is specific, is more for, well, it's for people who are interested in the ideas of Postcode Revolution and the outreach and also the action of doing it. So basically the group isn't kind of geographically bound in the sense of it's not the kind of postcode communities and their chats that exist are separate to that, and primarily the function of this chat is for the people who are leading and sort of wanting to do it where they are, and as a space for advice and sort of shared wisdom and community amongst people who are sort of seeking to do it or interested in the ideas and the space. So yeah, in future potentially there's there's potential.
Well, I also noticed your comment. The first comment in this toolkit is the people. Some people suffer from loneliness, and I think there's a lot of that around. And possibly Linda would have a lot more to contribute about that. But do you find that people will treat this as a social way of getting out that they wouldn't otherwise do? I mean, a lot of people lived in quite quiet isolation, which they would rather not do, but they don't know how to get out of it.
Yeah, so that's one of the really beneficial aspects to it. Yeah, is that by encouraging people to connect with their neighbours, the reality of at this moment we have a lot of young people online much of the time, and a lot of older people who are lonely and disconnected from people. So bringing generations together is a massive benefit from it, and yeah, that's these kind of two wings that I mentioned in that video. You've got the adaptation side of that. There's this greater sense of safety through doing this, in terms of resilience building, adaptation, knowing the people around you, and also potentially things people can do in their local area. But then there's also the transformation side, which has these benefits. Alison, would you like to?
Yes, hello. This is inspiring me. For the last, I don't know, 5 years at least, I've been waxing lyrical in my village, and it is a small village, and we're quite spread out. I've done newsletters, Facebook, social events. We've organised tree walks and wildflower walks, and we had a very good, I don't know if you've heard of Climate Fresque. We had a Climate Fresque session, which was run by a person who lives in the village, which was very good. However, I seem to get to a sort of plateau. I've got that's been going on. But I feel that I'm not moving on to the next stage. I keep asking people to sort of come and join me to make plans as to how this village can be more sustainable. I like your idea of the EPCs, but and that might be something we could start. And I certainly think the library and that kind of stuff would be great. But I feel as if we're not really moving on. I think people are getting to know one another better, perhaps. But I think they look at me and think, oh, she's banging on about the climate again, sort of thing, and nature again. I'm not sure how to move on.
That's been something that's come up for me. Sorry, do you mind if I answer just for a minute, Jack? I realise that
No,
wasn't.
that's okay.
So I'm a trustee for Pace Manning Tree. We're a practical actions for climate and the environment, and we just generate projects locally. And we're entirely voluntary sort of run. And we've sort of noticed the same thing, that if you have certain specific things that you're trying to get done, or, you know, for example, last week we needed to move a shed from point A to point B for our allotment. We can easily get volunteers for that, but what we can't get is people who will be involved in the running of something or leading of something. And I think sometimes it's about what you ask for. What I see amongst people who volunteer in this sector a lot is that everybody's just flat out with the volunteering they're already doing, or their current life, their job, their children, their family. The reasons are, you know, totally legitimate, and, you know, there are many of them. But what I've noticed is that people are more able to commit if you ask for a very discreet and specific ask, and they're much less likely to commit if you ask for something a bit more vague, like let's get organized, or help me do, like, you know, raise the profile or become more sustainable. Those things feel too big for people to kind of commit to. That, and so that's one thing, is that we found we get a better response if we ask people for a more discreet thing, whatever it might be, a project that's clearly got a start and finish. So whilst that might feel exhausting to you, it probably will actually end up with more help. And then I suppose just the other thing is to try to constantly reach new people. And I think the difficulty you're maybe having is that you are only a small village with a few people. But one of the things we've done, with a different hat on, I'm also a volunteer. I also work with Jules on the community climate action side. And one of the things we do there is we group people together in little clusters. So, for example, you could reach out to your local village somewhere nearby and see if they want to get together with you to do projects of a slightly bigger magnitude. And it might be that just reaching that little bit further afield, you find a bit more oomph and enthusiasm and drive and stuff, that, you know, it only needs one or two more people and it will make a difference to how you feel. So it could be that connecting with your equivalent in the next villages might be the way forward.
Yes, that sounds very wise. We do link with a climate action network in a town quite close. So that makes me feel much more part of something that's actually happening. And I sometimes think people live in this village because they don't particularly want to be part of a community. They are so spread out. But there are obviously, the only other thing is that when you're saying projects, I can get projects up and running and started and finished, but it's nearly always the same people. Although
Yes.
sometimes we do manage to drag other people in, and that's worked very well. And sometimes they are slightly younger than me, which is, but not, you know, it's quite an elderly population, I suppose. However, thank you. That's a very interesting answer.
Just on that front, though, it might be worth your while actually naming that and saying to them, you know, is it possible some of you have moved here so you don't have to get involved with stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, in that case, can we maybe just address the sort of baseline issues? Because sometimes if you speak to people's unspoken thoughts, it can actually
Yes.
strike a chord which they didn't realize was there.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. Very true.
But also,
Thank you.
Alison, I don't think you were with us last week, but one of the
No.
themes was, what do we do if there is a major outage of communications? And sometimes if you've got people in your little village, it really helps them to know that there is a space that we've all agreed to go to if there is a major outage or something. And at least they know that they've got a place to record their needs, their helps, particularly if they're frail or isolated or vulnerable in some way.
Yes.
And I think that this idea of Jack's sort of, as he says, ties in very well with the No 21 idea we had last week, which was get to know 21 people around you. And I'll shut up now and leave it to Linda to pitch in.
Thank you. I'll look at the recording of last week's session.
Thanks. I've just been researching this recently because, as Jack knows, I'm doing a talk on Friday, but I've never done this talk before, called "How to Be Great at Community Engagement," and I found all sorts of interesting things. One of the things that just reminded me of when I was first involved with Extinction Rebellion, how many people were kind of slightly interested in getting involved, but couldn't see a role for themselves there because they said, well, I'm not a this and I'm not a that. And it was so interesting when I started saying to people, well, how about we just have a chat online or meet for coffee? Let's talk about what you can do and what you do. And people would then say, well, yeah, I've done knitting in the past, or I've done cooking. And it just transpired that there was a role for everybody, but they saw this thing as being sort of front end loaded, that you have to be out there campaigning. So I'm wondering about what facilities there are and conversations that could happen. It also strikes me as well that, we lose 34 pubs a month in the UK and have done for years, highest number ever last year. And yet when you go to, if you talk to any estate agent and they say, people are moving out of London or into the cities, into the countryside, and they're all looking for a pub with a village with a pub rather. So there's clearly something that people want. They do want to be part of a community. So it's finding that sweet spot. So I think first of all, it's confidence about what people can and can't bring. Secondly, intergenerational. If people think that it's just old people like me running it, it's not going to be very appealing. So I've been thinking about actually revisiting the mapping of a community, because communities change quite a bit. And what's going on in the village hall now that wasn't there 5 years ago? What about the mother and baby clubs? What about this and what about that? So remapping who's living here, what's going on, and then finding also more ways, and maybe recruiting a young person who's got on social media if the people currently involved aren't, and thinking about it much more intergenerationally. And certainly in transition to be Norton, we found that we engage more youth when we don't talk about climate. We've got a really poor population. 17% of children in Chipping Norton are in the child poverty sector, are categorised as poverty. And people wouldn't think that because they think, oh, Chipping Norton, David Cameron, so they're worried about fitting in, they're worried about making friends, they're worried about not, all the sort of stuff of life. So I'm just wondering that once you have the relationship, and so what I've been thinking about for this talk is focus on the relationships, and then the roles and the tasks can become clearer. So build those connections, and have no asks of people. There's nothing they have to do. Come along and have a cup of tea or a dinner, and there's no ask then, until you get to know them better. Anyway, those are just my ramblings and things I've been learning.
No.
Share any more learnings that come along.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that, Linda, and best of luck for Friday. Yeah, that's one of the things with Postcode Revolution, we've been trying to, in the kind of sort of branding of it, and sort of forms of media like podcast and social media, has been trying to find ways of engaging that, getting that intergenerational engagement, especially getting younger people. Because I think the local can be sort of associated as not being kind of as sort of, I don't know, potentially like dynamic, or like something that youth want to engage with. So Postcode Revolution is one of the aims of it has been to try and bring that real sense of how important it is, and how much people can change at that level if they get involved. And I want to just and one of the things sort of that sort of issues that we've had with people sort of building community and sort of engaging of it, has been sort of making this sort of step into issues of communication on climate, and how to once the community set up, what people can do to act on climate and nature in their communities. And this kind of question motivated my dissertation, which revolved around this question of how can the UK transformatively adapt to climate and ecological breakdown. And this is the slideshow I used for the presentation in Burgess Hill, and it had this structure of check in, check out, and then looking at the concept of transformative adaptation, looking at heat waves, flooding, food insecurity, transformative adaptation action, and connecting up with the wider area and projects. So in the context of this presentation, who here has heard of the concept of transformative adaptation before?
You still got the toolkit on the page, Jack. Are you back on your presentation in your own mind's eye?
Okay. Is it currently just still sharing the toolkit?
Yes.
Okay, cool. What I'll do is I'll go back in and back out.
Here
we go. So can we now see the presentation?
Yep, you probably need to switch to slideshow mode.
Here we go. Cool. So can we see, does it say how am I defining transformative adaptation?
You're on a page that's got connect with your neighbors.
Oh, okay. Apologies, that is.
You just stop sharing now.
Yes. I've gone back in. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. Here we go. So this is
Now you're on your page about defining transformative adaptation.
Excellent. Thank you, Graham. So
there you go.
So this is basically transformative adaptation is a concept which has been sort of pioneered recently by Rupert Reed, Morgan Phillips, and Manda Scott in their book Transformative Adaptation. And it is a movement, it's an emerging movement that came about to repurpose this concept of transformative adaptation, which has been around in kind of climate international diplomacy circles for probably around 20 years at least now. But the transformative adaptation or trad movement has been about trying to reclaim this at a citizen level and engages with these three pillars of land, community, and transformation, meeting at the Green Gathering Festival. They construct a trad village with yurts and hold talks and demonstrate ways of living, which is about living in a way that is closer to land, lower energy, more sustainable, has local community at its heart, and has this idea of radical transformation in the way we live. And basically this is the frame, a useful frame that I've used for Postcode Revolution, so that in the context of my presentation dissertation, I use this framing of shallow adaptation, thinking about sea walls and having inequality as usual, the existing status quo, but then transformative adaptation being a way of adapting, which is working with community and nature in the context of our climate emergency. So it's a form of adapting to the risks, whilst also having this transformative element in changing the way we live to engage with our communities and bring nature back to where we live and integrate it into adaptation. So an example of this of nature-based forms of adaptation. They include things like rain gardens, include things like planting trees which provide shade in the context of heat waves, things like thinking about food security, growing more food where we live, thinking about our food systems, and this relocalization of resources which can aid us in the context of the breakdown of our supply chain. So in the presentation, I split it into thinking about heat waves using a case study of the national emergency in 2022, in which I was acted in this way, and then thinking about what does a community response to a heat wave look like, and this is also thinking about the non-human community as well. So what are the pets, what are the animals in the environment, how can we think about those as well, and also thinking about who's vulnerable in the community. So thinking about community vulnerability, so that would be pregnant mothers, infants, people working outside, people living on the streets, people with mental health difficulties, physical disabilities, that kind of thing, getting that community thinking of vulnerability. And then also thinking in the context of flooding. So I used a local example of the Lewis floods, which is close to Brighton. I was also born just a few months after this time. And again, thinking about community response to a flood. And this relates to last week's session, which was fantastic. And there was a lot of similarities here in the sense of thinking about, an example being thinking about the national flood helpline, thinking about in terms of advice of what to do and not to do in a flood. So that's thinking about things like the power of flood water, not walking or not driving in it, thinking about getting up to a high level, thinking about checking on your neighbours again, those who are vulnerable, those who are not, and again having that community response. And part of the workshops was thinking about encouraging people to create postcode emergency plans, and also thinking about food insecurity. So I gave the example of when KFC ran out of chicken in 2018, which was a humorous example, but testament to a serious issue, which is the just-in-time supply chains which function, and the majority of the UK food system relies upon, and thinking about in the context of of how climate affects these, and then thinking about a response of where can we get food from as a community, thinking about who grows what food is local to us, and sharing advice about that. Then thinking about projects that people can do, so as well as who represents the community. So I did this map here to represent the different levels of the representative of the community, because if you know who those representatives are, then you're more likely to be able to get things done. And then offered up some projects like creating bird boxes, hedgehog highways, rain gardens, pollinator highways, as well as in the other workshops, things like street parties, food hubs, and creating that, and basically engendering a sense of we're gonna create an action from this, and then thinking about expanding outwards, and the Postcode Revolution community, the Climate Majority Project, and checking out. So I'll stop sharing that. But basically, this was a way to, in some ways, a development of the Postcode Revolution project, which has been to think about this framing concept of transformative adaptation in the actions of building those communities, reaching out at that local level, connecting with the humans and non-humans around you, and then engaging in these projects and forms of adaptation, framing it as adaptation, but in a way that is also transformative and has a sense that it's not just all doom and gloom. It's also about changing the way we live for the better, and yeah, so that is the in some ways a shift, and basically providing people with ways of thinking about climate without necessarily making it all about climate change. So in the workshops, by focusing on heat waves and flooding and food, didn't really actually mention climate change very much, because it was about offering up these concrete examples of, it doesn't matter if you disbelieve in why the earth is warming up, you can't disagree with that heat wave of 2022 or the realities of floods and food insecurity. So by offering these ways in, it's been a way of attempting to kind of find ways of communicating and encouraging action on climate in ways that feel more concrete to people. So yeah.
I was struck when you were talking about introducing people back to nature and getting them more closely involved with the current housing crisis for young people, how difficult it is for them to get onto the housing ladder. And I know that near us, somebody has built a house out of bales of straw, which, the local farmer quite happily provided the straw, and local people helped to put a roof on and that sort of thing. But it was a much less expensive house to build. And I just wondered whether you would get the youth part of your community interested, because they don't have homes. They don't necessarily want to live with parents, but they can't afford to go anywhere else. I just wonder whether affordable housing that they could put up themselves, even if it is just a yurt or something, would at least get them much closer to nature, and would also give them a house. So that was one thought. The other thought I had was whether there's any interaction between your different postcode areas. So I noticed that the garden party in your home was largely a mixture of older people, whereas the picture of the pub was largely a mixture of younger people. I guess they were students, weren't they?
Yes.
And do the two ever meet, or do you keep them, they keep to their own devices?
So yeah, no, the postcode communities are kind of separate in the sense of, they're just again, they're not linked in the sense of a WhatsApp community. That's they're largely sort of in that central WhatsApp space. We sort of the sort of people who are sort of leading on action in those communities, kind of updating stuff, but by and large, those are separate. And but in the future, there are thoughts on ways of how to link those up. But yeah, your point about young people is a good one, Graham, as well. And that is something something to contemplate and perhaps work in, because as you say, house prices are ridiculous and unaffordable for the majority of young people. So finding a way of linking that in could be good. And the reality is that as you noticed from that picture, the each postcode is different in terms of demographics. The reality of where I live currently is a younger demographic. In Burgess Hill, it skews a bit older. So the reality is that it's going to be different, the actions and things that happen depending on where you are. But yeah, the aim of my research and dissertation has been to try and, in effect, provide more tools for people to go in. So as well as the toolkit, that slideshow presentation, I'm going to be making available to people, and the aim is to provide templates of things that people can do to engage with their communities. But I'll just stop talking if there are any more questions, comments
It
full-
is getting
full
close to the
scope.
end.
Yeah.
Close to the end of the hour, but I just draw your attention to a note from Bonnie to you in the chat, where she is keen to join you in a podcast. So you may want to follow up with that.
Great, Ronnie.
And Linda's had to run away to her next meeting because she's actually hosting it, so she's had to go. And I will take a few seconds just to mention that next week's Banter session is about how you convert a piece of local land into a really useful nature trove. It's talking to people who are right in the middle of doing it as we speak, so they'll be able to let you know what the difficulties were, how they got the parish council on side, how they got the locals on side, and how the biggest source of energy, of course, was the children. They love coming out and playing with bugs and with water and with planting trees and so forth. So do come next week, please, if you are interested in what to do with that spare piece of land that's doing nothing at the moment, which you just happen to have at the back of your garden or wherever it happens to be. And Jack, I don't see anyone raising hands, but thank you so much for pitching in and helping us out and giving us an update on where things are. And
thank you, thank you, and thank you, Graham. And I've just put my email there in the
good. Thank you.
Anyone does want to get in touch further? Thanks very much for having me, Graham. Thanks everyone for taking your time out of your day to listen, and really great discussion and feedback and yeah, really grateful. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Oh,
Keep
that's great.
going.
Take care, everybody. Bye bye.